on October 8th, 2023. There were so many who were not ready to hear the argument that this was actually Israel's own design, that its violent apartheid regime that spanned over 75 plus years at that point had created a violent reaction. Okay? People were not ready for that message at all. Many people said, nah, fuck this. I'm not hearing you. I'm not listening to you. That's ridiculous. That's unacceptable. How dare you say that? Okay? At the time, Israel's approval was fairly high, and the Palestinian approval was fairly low. As a matter of fact, lower than ever before. But very quickly, people realized that the violence that was unfolding in the region was something they could not look away from. Violence that we were contributing to with our tax dollars. Violence that we were contributing to with our policymakers and their lack of interest in correcting the record, their lack of interest in stopping Israel from doing this. Joe Biden went to Israel and gave a bear hug to Benjamin Netanyahu, and the bear hug strategy started. But because of the lack of options for Palestinians that could only show the rest of the world what they were going through, and because of the steadfast nature of the activist left that already knew what the reality looked like and already knew what was coming, okay, a lot of people kept pushing. People like myself, people like yourselves, we kept pushing. And through that steadfast approach, in spite of all the naysayers, we have now officially arrived at a position for the first time in American history where American sympathies in the Middle East situation are with the Palestinians. More Americans now at 41% sympathize with the Palestinians than the Israelis at 36%. You do not understand how profound this sea change is. Because I think for many of you, you're young, or for many of you, you weren't aware of what this dynamic looked like. You're not aware of what these numbers reflect. Because this dynamic where Israel was favored by 60%, where Palestinians could barely break over 20% sympathy in the eyes of many Americans, was kept together by a multi-billion-dollar propaganda initiative. Okay? A lot of money was spent to make sure that Americans did not learn the truth. And that went on for almost 80 fucking years. And all it took was 2 years for that to completely flip on its fucking head. That's the reason why I always stress to people who became diehard advocates, anti-Zionists, pro-Palestinian advocates overnight, that this struggle has been ongoing for almost a fucking century. Okay? For almost a century. Now, when I say it took 2 years, obviously it meant hundreds of thousands of deaths on the Palestinian side. Okay? But I will say, I will tell you always, as someone who was there for a decade plus, okay, who never shied away from talking about the Palestinian plight, someone who was an avowed anti-Zionist, it's still incredibly important to understand how fast this turn happened. And it's still incredibly important to lean into that, to build confidence in your advocacy, to build confidence in your worldview, because it turns out if you are disciplined and you lean into the truth, you can actually put a dent in one of the most sophisticated and most pervasive propaganda machines that has ever existed. Do you understand? Because this didn't happen because there was a lot of moneyed interest on the pro-Palestinian advocacy side. This only happened because people were like, this is fucking wrong. And I will do everything in my power to educate those around me. I will do everything in my power to pull them, to get them to also to go outside, to get them to also protest. I will go to jail if it's necessary. I will get yelled at. I will be doxxed, I will be harassed, I will be swatted, but it doesn't fucking matter because this is the truth. You have to lean into the small victories that you get along the way to maintain your revolutionary optimism. This is what I always stress. Because slowly but surely, brick by brick, you build this movement, and one day you look back and you go, wow, I can't believe we're here. I can't believe that people were against this. One day, we will all have been against this. We're not fully there yet. But that's why I always cast aside cynicism, okay? Now, I disagree. I think small victories just lead to a false sense of progress. That's pure nihilism. And this is what I'm trying to say. While there is truth in this assessment that, like, this death toll is unimaginable, okay? You are unironically doing a disservice to the Palestinians when you do this, okay? You want to know why? Because when you say stuff like this, when you tell people not to feel emboldened in this very moment, when you tell people not to keep pushing at this very moment, do you feel like you're actually helping save a Palestinian life? Or do you want to just simply come across like you're correct? To come across like you're the most moral person in this conversation? That's the entire argument here, okay? It is a disservice to the Palestinians if you just go, yeah, well, hundreds of thousands of people died. America's at the precipice of fucking invading Iran and bombing Iran. Another 100,000 potentially could die. Tens of millions displaced in the process. What is there to do? We didn't do anything. We didn't achieve anything. Oh, you felt good because you did a couple fucking sit downs and protests? Is that what it is? This is just pure fucking back padding for no reason, right? When you say that, you're trying to cut away at the momentum. That's all you're doing. Do you feel like that's productive? Do you feel like that's the appropriate thing to say here? I think this is a real big problem with leftists in general. People that constantly say, look, the problems are far too large. We haven't actually put a dent in these problems. When in fact, sometimes it's important to look at the success of this movement and to use that success to build success in other ongoing areas as well, ongoing areas of cruelty as well. I have found in my own personal experience tremendous gains that I have been able to make with people that were utterly oblivious to the situation in Cuba by making that comparison between Gaza and Cuba. Okay? You can too. Because the cruelties are still similar. The inception point is still similar. The needs are still similar. It's still imperialism. It is still American empire. Sometimes the techniques and the measures taken by the government are similar. Starvation, right? A siege. You can convince people that are naysayers, that did not believe, by reminding them how they probably also didn't believe that the Palestinian movement would ever have any motion whatsoever in this fucking country 3 years ago. Remind them of where they were and what the mental blocks that they had that caused them to think, oh, this is scary. These are scary Muslims that went and did barbaric raping and pillaging on October 7. We got to stop talking about them. Why would you ever defend them? That's crazy. Because there were plenty of people that felt that way on October 7, 2023. Plenty of people that felt that way even in 2024. Plenty of people that felt that way in 2025. And every single day there are new people that turn around and say, this was wrong, I was wrong. That's why I never cast aside people who actually come to the right conclusion, no matter how late it is. Because I understand that in order to build a movement, you have to have those people on board. I took a deep dive into Zohar Mamdani's numbers. I'm not sure if the people will realize this. Yeah, Lakshay Jain, another one of these like centrist pollsters. I'm not sure if people realize this, but he is actually one of the most unpopular Democrats in the country in a way that Harris, Newsom, AOC are not. And it's not even all that close per our new poll. These people are monsters, even if they don't realize it, okay? They're monsters that try to stop progress from happening because they unfortunately lack the imagination. They also lack the backbone. They have no moral foundation for their worldview. They're simply going along with the winds. And that's why they always fucking lose. Either they lose to the reactionary forces that do have a vision, no matter how negative that vision is, or in this circumstance, hopefully, if we succeed, they will lose to a vision in the affirmative by a left flank movement that centers the working class in their politics, in their policy, in their agenda, in the future that they want to build. So it's up to you. Will you stand idly, will you stand by the side and go, I don't know, this is not moving the needle fast enough for my taste? Or will you become a part of this movement? Some of you genuinely do make perfect the enemy of good. And you don't realize that you yourself, through that cynicism, are also creating hurdles for progress to happen. You think you are making the correct assessment, and in some ways, in theory, you might actually make the correct assessment, but you miss the forest for the trees. You miss the small progress that is necessary to make that big leap, okay? Revolution doesn't happen spontaneously. It requires diligence. It requires a steadfast approach. It requires messaging discipline. It requires organizational discipline. You can either be a hanger-on that comes in at the last moment and say, I was there all along, and feel like you played a role in this, or you can actually be the person that genuinely plays a role in it. I don't know. I just feel very, very hopeful right now, and I hope it's not cut away by some devastating defeats that come later down the line. But as someone, look, as someone who's been at this for quite a while, it's hard for me not to maintain optimism at this moment. And I'll tell you what I tell people all the time. I'm a leftist. And one thing that I am very good at is taking L's, okay? If you are a socialist, if you're an anti-capitalist living in the imperial core, you have always experienced hardship and taking L's over and over and over again, okay? And the faster you overcome that fear of taking an L, or the faster you overcome the feelings that you feel in that moment of loss, whether it be Bernie Sanders in 2016, or whether it be the aftermath of the Nevada caucus in 2020. You take your licks and you keep your head down and you keep pushing. Okay? You don't take for granted the inevitability of progress. You make it happen. Okay? The faster you can recover from your defeats, the more dynamic you are, the more you learn from those defeats, the better it will be. The easier it will be for you to develop success in the future. That's it. For the first time, the lines have crossed. Change is coming, folks. This was a decade ago. Growing share of liberal Democrats sympathize more with the Palestinians than in Israel. Now, liberal, but that's not even the entirety of the Democrats. That's liberal Democrats versus conservative and moderate Democrats, right? Now the entirety of the Democratic Party is 80% on the side of Palestinians. Look. Okay, I have a better song for this, bro. I think we're gonna run this poll back, but with a better song, because that's not very good. That's not very good audio here.
على عهدي على ديني على أرض تلاقيني أنا لأهلي أنا فديهم أنا دمي فلسطيني 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 أنا دمي فلسطيني على أرض تلاقيني أنا لأهلي أنا فديهم والله أنا دمي فلسطيني 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 أنا دمي فلسطيني.
For the people who are asking what happened in 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon. A plurality of Americans sympathize more with Palestinians than with Israelis for the first time in Gallup polling history. Hard to overstate the significance of this shift, says Niall Stanage, and it's not confined to the left by any stretch, despite claims otherwise. Izzy Breen says, liberal Zionists won't even call themselves Zionists anymore. Among American Jews under the age of 35, people who call themselves anti-Zionists or non-Zionists outnumber those who identify as Zionists. The end of the bipartisan consensus is here. This is a fucking devastating poll, dude. Oh my God, it's so hard for me not to fucking smoke them. You know what I mean? It's so fucking, it's just, it's hard for me to feel the pessimistic for the future when I see stuff like this. Because I know what it took to get here, okay? Whether it be the unlimited human casualty numbers or whether it be the consistent advocacy from so many people, from Palestinians, Palestinian Americans, those on the left, those who were forever changed once they learned the truth about what Israel was doing. That's why I kept repeating over and over again to all of you over the course of the last couple of years where I was like, this is the most popular Israel will ever be in the Western world. Today is the most popular Israel will be. Tomorrow, Israel will be less popular than it was today. And the day after, it will be even less popular. And we still got to improve those numbers. We still got to improve those numbers. It's not going to happen, right? It's not going to magically turn overnight. That's why I kept repeatedly telling people like woke 2 is not here, or the pendulum will not swing in the opposite direction out of nowhere. Yes, I've seen Eggboy Iglesias on the tweet on the matter. Even beyond the tactical blunders is looking like it's over for pro-Israel politics once today's seniors pass along. Yeah. Jacob Ben David Linker says, I think a bunch of people interpreted sympathize more with as meaning feel bad for. 41% of Americans sympathize more with Palestinians and 36 Americans sympathize more with the Israelis. But Israel is viewed favorably by 46% of Americans and unfavorably by 48% of Americans, whereas Palestinian territories are viewed favorably by 37% of Americans and unfavorably by 53%. 37 is still a new high for Palestinian territories, though. Keep coping. Keep coping. I like this, okay? Because it's true. Our work is not complete. Our work is not done. Israel still gets to be this incredibly violent entity in the region, constantly doing death and destruction campaigns to its neighbors over and over again. We're going to keep pushing. you know? I'm not going to stop. So this kind of cope is good because it feeds back into the fervor necessary to keep up the momentum. Okay? It's good. But like I said, this is the most popular Israel will be. Yesterday, Israel was more popular, and tomorrow, Israel will be less popular. And the only tool in the tool belt for the Zionists is nagging, harassing, false accusations of anti-Semitism, demands for firing people, demands for deplatforming, ICE detentions, double standards, and exceptionalism will make Americans sympathize more with Israelis. Again, maybe Israel killing more Americans with impunity and more pics of murdered Palestinians will help too. Pair that up with a war against a country with 93 million people in it at the behest of Israel, that certainly is going to be the cherry on top. Americans love to be told to shut the fuck up by a country that sucks away tremendous amounts of tax revenue. They love hearing the arrogance coming from Zionists in Western media. They love it. It's their favorite thing. Who could have foreseen this moment? I wonder. It doesn't require you to be fucking brilliant, okay? And this is another thing that I want to stress here. I'm not a particularly brilliant person, okay? I do not have the gift of prophecy. I just have a fucking backbone, and I recognize right from wrong, and I don't quit. And there are plenty of you in this community who are also the same. And that's the reason why this change happened, okay? Not because of just this community, but many other communities all around the fucking world. But that's it. That's fucking it. I'm stubborn, and I understand right from wrong, and I also maintain the belief in my fellow man that they too can also see right from wrong. They can be convinced. I don't give up on people, and neither should you. Okay? Hasan, is Gavin confirmed? Pulling a Gavin there? No, I just, it doesn't require much. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is a movement comprised of ordinary people. Preaching to the choir, Abi? Yeah, except every day that choir grows. I don't know if you noticed that. That's the whole point. People say, oh, aren't you talking to people who aren't you preaching to the converted? It's like, really? Am I? Am I preaching to the converted? How many people in the United States of America would have self-identified as socialists or anti-imperialists or anti-fascists not that fucking long ago? You know? That's why I always laugh when journalists ask me, like, don't you feel like you're preaching to the choir? Don't you feel like you're preaching to the choir? I say, what choir? Was the choir there when I had fucking 35 people tuning in? Was there this, like, mass momentum of self-identifying Marxist-Leninists and socialists and communists alike that were just simply waiting for this opportunity? No. Every one of us, myself included, was a liberal at some point, or maybe even a reactionary at some point. No one is born. In some ways, everyone is born a socialist. If you look back at the first principles, if you look back at, like, wanting to share, you know, sharing is caring, things like that. Man is a social animal. Of course, we all have that socialist dog in us. But that is ripped away from us early on because we are born into a capitalist system. We're born into a global capitalist world. And slowly but surely, we hyper-focus on the individuality. And by the time we come of age, we all self-identify as liberals or self-identify as conservatives, self-identify as, you know, a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, lifelong Republican, whatever. None of that is a disciplined socialist. And the very small group of people who do self-identify as that, by the time they're like, you know, in their teenage years, are actually born into a life of ideological privilege, I guess, because they were born into a family that educated them correctly. Just saying, you radicalized me 10 years ago, so I can tell you that there was not really a choir back then, but more of a boy band size of a group, Lamau. You've grown a massive community over the years, and that's not ending. Yes. Yep, I was a reactionary pencil tucky hog back in 2016. Now I've thankfully grown and see what socialism has to offer to everyone. Zionism is not like the nationalism of a larger group with the population, resources, economic heft, theft, etc. That it allows it to not depend too much on the opinions of other people. That's why the century-old Israel lobby is such a central part of Zionist activity and practice. Exactly. In practice, Zionism has been completely dependent on other people, states, governments, sympathetic publics, etc. since its inception. There is no self-sufficient version of Zionism or Israel. Israel is currently on the path to figuring out this the hard way. Straight up. That's true. It's literally true. Israel would not exist if it wasn't for the Western world using it as a settler colonial apparatus to destabilize a resource-rich region. It's that simple. It would simply not exist. America was a settler colonial enterprise as well, but America is vast, and through domination, indigenous genocide, and through slavery, America was able to form a nation state on top of basically a fucking continent, okay? Israel doesn't have that. As the average Zionist will tell you immediately, Israel is tiny nation, size of New Jersey. What are you saying? We are so small. And it's true. Utterly devoid of resources. They will turn around and say, like, this is a fucking, you know, prosperous nation. Look at what we've been able to build. You haven't built shit without unlimited fucking support from the Western world. And if that wasn't the case, they wouldn't constantly spend billions of fucking dollars in building one of the most sophisticated propaganda and influence peddling operations ever known in the Western world. It's that fucking simple. It's that simple. They would fuck off. They wouldn't be desperately trying to hold on to the evangelical Zionist base, for example, in the United States of America right now. Okay, let's test the theory by having U.S. and Europe cut off ties with Israel. No more foreign aid, no more military aid, no more diplomatic protection from international law, no more censorship of anti-Zionist speech or boycotts. Let's see what happens. Oh, that would be the fucking day. The case for Zionism is that it's always been very dangerous for Jews to depend too much on the opinions of other people. Oh, it would be the moment of glory. Okay. Oh, I wish for the day. I wish to see that day, and I know I will see that day. Okay. It's coming. And I'm glad, because the arrogance of Zionists after 80 years of complete domination on the issue of Palestine has caused them to be blinded, okay? It's become more insulated than ever before. No investment in influence peddling beyond what they've already done, beyond the successful initiatives. Successful initiatives that obviously relied heavily on the media being incredibly censored or the media being State Department lackeys. so arrogant, so entitled, and that arrogance and that entitlement has led to their demise. I've said this over and over again. You are anti-American and anti-Western values. You are a parasite hidden in the grass. Bitch, I'm not hiding. I'm unbanning him. Hiding? Motherfucker. I wear this shit on my chest every day. Fuck you mean? What are you talking about when you say Western values? What part of Western values is supposed to be defense of apartheid? If that's Western values, then Western values need to change. Keep crying, bitch. You should be deported. Please move to Iran. Those are some of the good Western values that have allowed someone like myself to live here and to convince my fellow American citizens, as I am a part of that group, by the way, that there is a better alternative out there, one that actually does not take away their surplus labor value and offer it directly to the fucking capital overlords, but instead one that demands more for their own labor. And you can Asmongold Mogg you. Okay, buddy. Ask yourself, will dying for Israel will it be good for you? How will it be beneficial for you if you go and die for Israel in Iran? Ask yourself that question. How does this improve my life? If you want me to make a selfish argument for you, if you cannot comprehend that like killing a bunch of people overseas is not a good thing on its own, right? It's immoral, it's morally repugnant. Think about it from a selfish perspective. Does this benefit you at all, or have you been convinced by others that this is somehow beneficial for you when it's not? Yeah, Asman won't look Hasan in the eye, and you're over here talking about fucking mogging. Why do so many of you chatters support Stalin, who murdered millions of Russians, gave the order to kill 22K Poles in the Katyn forest, and engineered the Ukrainian famine? Because he melted Nazis, okay? He melted Nazis. And we fucking hate Nazis here. He was the great Nazi annihilator, and he also helmed a state that was an agrarian society being undermined by czarists as a bunch of uneducated peasants into one that was able to beat America to space, okay? Beat America in the space race. They had nothing. Nothing at all.